Back at it here with the Kaufman Corner podcast. With you, as always, the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. We're talking Royals baseball here on a Sunday night. Remember, if you're catching us via the podcast, you can be a part of the conversation Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Central Time, that is. And first of all, we say Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. I hope you had a great Mother's Day. And thank you to what all the moms do as we discuss the Kansas City Royals. Lots of moms love the Royals. They've won 16 of 18 before taking on the Boston Red Sox, now dropped 2 out of 3. Is this success just schedule driven? Are they just bullying the bad teams? Are they good enough to actually contend to get it all the next 6? Houston and St. Louis, they've had a pretty good last couple of days. They're above 500. What will the Royals do in those next 6 games? We'll talk about it. Time to take Michael Massey out of the lineup. If not him, then who? Is Freddy Fermin the most popular Royals backup in a long, long time? How do the Royals survive? If Salvador Perez isn't going to catch at all, when is that going to happen again? What can the Royals do in the margins? What are they doing in the margins to survive with this offense that's not playing well? It's a time to demote Angel Zerpa. Chris Stratton, dare we say his name again? He had some moments there for a while. And, of course, would it be a show if we didn't mention Jac Caglianone? We're doing it all right here, right now on the Kaufman Corner Podcast.
You're listening to the Kaufman Corner Podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and a former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, covering all the important things in your world. Home, business, life, and even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it, get with Dave and he'll have you covered. Give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. And now, here are your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. Off and running here on a Sunday night. And Rany, hopefully your Mother's Day was a good one here so far, and you took care of the moms in your world. The Royals, good. I'm glad to hear it. The Royals had been taking care of business, at least against the lesser teams, winners of 16 of 18, but then they run into the Boston Red Sox, a little bit stiffer challenge. They promptly dropped 2 out of 3 and suffer the worst defeat of the year. What are they? Just bullies of bad teams, or are they a legit contender?
Why not both?
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to minimize the 16 of 18.
Because it makes the conversation kind of suck. I hate to be the, the realist here when it comes to trying to put this little podcast together, but no.
Fair enough. For the man who has to spend 4 hours a day, 5 days a week coming up with content, that's the fair answer.
Oh, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you rate him? 5. What kind of grade? C. There's no fun there. Come on, Rany. What is it?
Well, but my point is, I think they may have a strength of schedule issue. They may have a problem beating good teams, and yet it may not matter. Let's put it this way. Right now, they're 24 and 18, which means if you take out the Rockies and the White Sox, right? The last year's White Sox obviously historically bad. The Rockies may actually be worse than last year's White Sox. You take out those 2 teams, they're below 500. All right, that seems like a problem. Can you think of a team that made the playoffs despite being under 500 if you just took out their worst opponent? I can. It was last year's Royals.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, what? Come on. So, can I find some statistical outlier that says, it's been done this way before? Sure, but realistically, the answer to this question, I'll be the realist here. I'll be the adult in the room. Okay. The reality is, this team right now, the way it's playing, no, it's not a contender. Could they back ass into a playoff spot? Maybe, but are they a contender? No. In fact, we might need to bring up the debate of, was last year's team really a contender, or was it just commercial filler for the playoffs? Now, that's a phrase I use mostly in the NFL. Every team that makes the NFL playoffs is not really a contender. There's a couple of those in the wash 10-7 teams that don't really have a quarterback, that has no hope of beating Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts back to back, right? But they got to play those early round playoff games, and so somebody's got to help fill the commercials. They're those teams. Baseball is not quite hockey in the sense that literally it seems like anybody can win the Stanley Cup off their tournament. But you can advance, and certainly long shots deliver much more often in baseball. So I don't want to just call them commercial filler. But can this team, the way it's playing right now, if the offense plays the way it's playing right now, is it a contender? No, it absolutely is not. Because what it does have offensively will be neutralized to a degree. It will not be good enough. No, the answer is no. It is not a contender the way it is right now. The conversation is, well, will it be this at the end of the year? And forget about the trade. Like, yes, we all want them to go get the big heavy bat that's going to raise them up, and that would be a big help. And maybe it's multiple bats. But this team right here, could it get to a point offensively where you say, okay, if they hold the fort on the pitching, which has been really good, could the offense get to be good enough? Now there's a conversation to be had there, but I'm still leaning towards no, right? Like, so, you can find your dubious, outlier, but reality is no, this team's not a contender the way it is right now.
I absolutely see what you're saying. And yet at the same time, we are talking, maybe it's just because they're coming off a 16 of 18 stretch. And like, I've seen a lot of Royals baseball in my life, right? I saw them win a World Series. I saw them win another World Series. I saw them go 29 years between playoff appearances. I've seen a lot. I had never seen a Royals team go 16 of 18 in my conscious life, because I was 3 years old the last time it happened. Like 16 of 18, and maybe it's a reflection of just how bad the Royals have been, because 16 of 18 is not historically great, but the Royals had not done it. And
But
like, I don't want to minimize what they did.
Yeah, don't move off that part. Let me ask you this. Sorry to interrupt you, but I want to ask you this. They went 7-0 against the Rockies and White Sox in there, which is still, needs to be pointed out, 9-2
right
against the rest of the bunch, but was still a softer schedule, right? The Rays weren't playing well. There's all kinds of things that go into it. But have you seen them face two teams as bad as the White Sox and Rockies in your conscious life?
Well, there was last year's White Sox, right, when they went 12-1.
But the Rockies are worse than last year's White Sox.
They might be. They are hilarious. So to me, the issue is simply, even in that 16 of 18 stretch, they weren't scoring a ton of runs. Like they had the occasional outburst, right? They scored. They beat the White Sox in the final game 10-0. They did have score the 11 in that completely out of body experience in Baltimore, where they hit 7 home runs, a franchise record. They scored 8 runs in one game against Tampa, and then they had back-to-back 7 and 6 run games against the Rockies. But basically, aside from the Rockies and White Sox, they have scored more than 4 runs twice in a game going back, if I'm doing the math correctly, to April the 4th, right? They scored 2 runs in this series against the Red Sox that were not zombie runners in extra innings, right? They won on Friday. Both of their runners that scored got placed on second base in extra innings. Other than that, they scored 2 runs in 3 games, right? They go up against a competent team, and immediately the offense shuts down. What was incredible was that their pitching was so good during that 16 of 18 stretch, it didn't matter. You probably saw the stat. I mean, they allowed no earned runs 7 times in a 14-game stretch. It was 6 shutouts. The 7th game was the Friday game against Boston, where they would have thrown a shutout had they scored a run in regulation, but because they didn't, they ended up giving up a zombie runner scored against Daniel Lynch, I think, in the 11th inning. But their pitching was great. I mean, they gave up 1 run in 3 extra innings with a runner on second base to start the inning. But essentially, 7 times in a 14-game stretch to give up 0 earned runs. No American League team has done that since they lowered the mound in 1969. Like, as bad as the offense is, the pitching has actually been good enough to make up for it. And it's like the center cannot hold. Something has to give. Either the offense will get better, or and this team is a legit contender, or the pitching will get worse and this team is going to fall to pieces. I don't know how long this can be sustained.
Well, wait a minute. I mean, to quote somebody who I heard a long time ago, like, I don't know, 7 minutes ago, why not both?
Well, right now, they are, like, this is my point. I think they are right now, but I don't think this is going to last all season. I think if they play as well as they've been playing, they are going to stay in this race until the trading deadline for sure. But then they have to do something. Like you said, I don't really believe in what you said, the playoff filler, like in football, where commercial filler. Yeah, I mean, absolutely a 7 seed. I mean, that Chiefs Steelers game a couple years back, it was
Steelers were commercial filler. Exactly.
Right. It was like, yes, any given Sunday, but was I nervous at any point in that game? No, I don't think I was. The Dolphins game, same thing. But in baseball, it can happen. Obviously, the Royals were a wild card team and went to the World Series in 2014. But you've got to be able to score at least a little bit. The one thing that gives me hope, crazily enough, is, and maybe 40 years is too long ago for it to be relevant today, but the 1985 Royals had the second fewest runs scored in the American League. They barely made the playoffs despite like an all-time pitching staff. But that all-time pitching staff got them there. George Brett took over some games against the Blue Jays, and then they pulled out a couple of close wins against St. Louis, and then finally blew everything up in Game 7. Like that's a team that rode that offense that had like, Darryl Motley and Pat Sheridan and Onyx Concepcion and Buddy Biancalana in the lineup and won a World Series. So it is possible if your pitching staff is literally like 2 guys who are top 5 in the Cy Young vote and then 3 really good guys like the Royals had with Saberhagen and Lebrand.
Well, who are the 2 guys that are top 5 in the Cy Young vote?
Well, I was just about to say, or like Cole Reagan and Lugo literally last year were top 5 each. So,
and who this year is?
Well, based on the fundamentals, Cole Reagan's is still pitching extremely well. His ERA does not reflect it. He's had a couple of outings where he's given up a lot of runs.
But see, but that's the thing is like you keep this is like the we round up at 89.5. Well, I got an 89.4. Well, that's almost there. Okay, but I got an 89.3, and if you took 89.4, let's like your first parameter is you got to have 2 Cy Young guys. So I ask you, who are the 2 Cy Young guys? The answer is there aren't. Right,
I think Chris Bubich
would be the one Cy Young guy right now, and so then, but when we change it, but then the analytics though, Cole Reagan's is not a Cy Young guy. So even by your own, like, come on, cheerleader, like put the pom poms down for a minute. Like, well, am I telling you that this team absolutely cannot contend? That this team absolutely cannot win a pennant? I am absolutely not telling you that. But the question based upon this team right now, the way it's playing, it can't. And I think it's really important. It doesn't really matter if us 2 chuckleheads volley this back and forth. But I think J.J. Piccolo has to look at this team and see what's really looking back at him, right? And that is a team that is not a contender, right? They're not that far off, but I think it's important because, what's going to happen is everyone in the chat room is going to get mad that I'm not loving it up and saying, yeah, they are. Here it is. And then you know what? All those same people are going to tell me all the guys they got to trade for. You got to trade for this guy, right? Because you want to know why? Because they're not a contender. If they're a contender, they don't need to trade for anybody. So if you're getting ready to send me something in the chat room right now that says, well, they got to go get this bat or they got to go get that bat. Well, you don't go get a bat if you're already ready to go. They're not ready to go. Now, that can change. Drew Waters maybe will look like he's a 2020 guy. Probably not. 2010 guy, right? And, okay, one outfield, solved. He's done a nice job of kind of steadying the ship there. Michael Massey might find the stroke that had us all excited, that he was a guy that you want to give a contract extension to coming into this year, as opposed to the guy we're going to talk about in a little bit. How much time does he need in Omaha? Right? The solutions may very well lie within and getting it fixed, but we're not early anymore, right?
No, we're not. And look, we agree more than we disagree here. Like
always.
Exactly. The team as it is right now is a fringe contender, right? It is commercial filler right now, which is good enough that they should try to get better. Like it won't take a lot to get better. The 2015 Royals, as good as they were, had a massive hole in their lineup when Alex Gordon got hurt midway through the season turned out to be a huge blessing because they went out and got the one extra piece of the puzzle in Ben Zobrist. Then when Gordon came back, that lineup suddenly had like 7 above average hitters in it. And it was back to being a world championship caliber roster. This team's offense is never going to be as good as that 2015 Royals team, but the pitching staff is better right now. Top to bottom. I mean, the bullpen in 2015 was amazing, but this bullpen is pretty good. And the rotation, there's just no comparison in my mind. But the offense is so bad, but that makes it easier to improve too. You don't have to get a Ben Zobrist caliber player, right? Like, I mean, I don't know if Taylor Ward is above the line right now, but like almost any outfielder is above the line.
But again, I want to back up. If they're hitting like this, they do need a Ben Zobrist player. They might need more than a Ben Zobrist player. Like that. That's the whole point. We're talking about this team. Are you convinced Michael Massey's going to get it going? Or are we in a couple of minutes, are we going to talk about, they need to send him out?
I'm not convinced. No, I mean,
well, then why would you say that?
Well, because
this offense blows. It's as bad as the pitching is good. It's just as bad.
Because as bad as the hitting has been, they're 24-18. Like they're on pace to win like 90 games.
All right, then I'll go ahead. I was trying to stay away from this, but in Baltimore's in that stretch too, and Baltimore sucks. We don't want to say that because we think Baltimore's good. We think they're going to get it together. Their pieces certainly say that they're good, but their record says that they blow. Right? So that in there is 9 games against teams that are trash right now. So like taking this like where they are is largely based upon what they have done. It's entirely based upon what they have done over this stretch, and this stretch is not, and that's why it's really, it would have been great if they could have found a way to win 2 out of 3 from Boston. Then the confidence meter, and I do think, look, if they take 2 out of 3 in Houston and they take 2 out of 3 back home against St. Louis, we're going to feel a lot better. And this will look different because then they will have gone 5-4 against better competition. And it'll be full speed ahead. Then I'll listen to what you're saying. But they didn't just do that against Boston. And they got pounded in one of the games with Cole Reagan's on the bump, I'll add.
Well, yes, and then Angel Zerpa gave up 5 runs in 2 innings. It wasn't all Cole Reagan.
I know,
so,
but,
yes.
but the idea that, they're in every game because of their pitching. No, I mean, everybody has an off day. And I look, again, we largely agree, but I mean, I don't know how, and I think it's important. What about my point about who cares what we think? JJ Picollo cannot view this team as a contender right now.
I agree with that. I mean, I agree that, I agree that he cannot look at this team and be like, as if we stand pat, this is a contender the rest of the way. The good thing about being 24-18 is they have banked those 6 wins. And yes, they had an easy part of the schedule, but the first 23 games of the season was a hard part of the schedule. I think their overall strength of schedule the rest of the season is not significantly harder than the entirety of the 42 games that they have played. So being, 6 games above 500, they could literally go 500 the rest of the season and be at 84 and 78. They'd only have to pick up a few more games to be in the range of contender, but they have to be better. The good news about having an offense this bad is it is not that hard to improve. And it is possible to improve substantially without necessarily trading for a superstar. If you just trade for an above average hitter, this team is probably 4 wins better on paper. Because right now they're literally sending out below replacement level talent every time Hunter Renfroe's in the lineup. And whatever other lineup spot, whether it's Michael Massey right now or the bottom lineup in general. I mean, Kyle Isbell is worth it with the defense, but if you add even 1 hitter, you could easily add 2 hitters to this roster and improve by 5 or 6 wins. And that's enough. I mean, that's the difference between 84 and 85 wins and 91, 92 wins. I mean, that's that at that point, you're legitimately a contender.
I want to draw attention to a couple things. Kid Dynamite X. How can Soren say the 3rd best record in the AL blows? Because I didn't say it. I mean, that's how. That's not what I said. I said Baltimore blows. I said this stretch is powered by beating 3 teams that blow, right? So if you want to quote me right, but that's asinine. That's not at all what I said. I said that those teams blow, right? And this team doesn't blow. In fact, I think this team is close to being a contender, but they're not now. This offense is not going to win a championship. And I even stated that this team, as it stands right now and hitting the way it is, can make the playoffs. They're just not going to win anything. So let me make it clear for Kid Dynamite and anybody else out there. Listen to the words coming out of my mouth, okay? Take your insecurities and send them someplace else. They might be able to get into the playoffs. I think unlikely, the way this team is hitting, that they will get there with an offense this bad. It's also unlikely that this offense will remain this bad if they do nothing, okay? But it has to get better. But that's not at all what I said. So get it right, okay? The next thing is this one, Trey. We beat bad teams and lose to great ones. I just want to be clear. So the Red Sox are a great team? Is that what we're getting at here? Because I don't think they're a great team, right? And we have always said, and I'll reiterate it again, since it seems like we got to bring people up to speed every time, playoff teams do not just pound quality teams. They go 500-ish. And the Royals went like 450-ish against good teams last year. Usually they go 500-ish against the good teams, and they beat the hell out of the bad teams. So this is a big part of the playoff picture. And again, they can be good enough to get the playoffs. But do you want to beat the Yankees, or do you just want to go and, curl up at their feet again this year? Right? Because that's what will happen if this offense, the way it's playing right now goes. That's the point, right? That's what we're getting at. And I think we're in agreement. It's just a matter of how much confidence do you have that it's going to get there, right? What are they going to do in this next 6? Houston and St. Louis. What do you got?
I mean, I know you hate the wishy-washy. I think they're going to go 3-3 because I feel like this team is exactly like they are still kind of waiting to reveal who they really are, and I don't think they will until something breaks or until JJ makes a move. And I mean, it could be as simple a move as like releasing on to run from bringing up John Rave to try him out in right field, but like there's just too many holes in this lineup to predict kind of a consistent, 4 or 5 runs a game. And against, like you said, good or even competent teams. The Astros and Cardinals, I'm not sure either team is really good, but they're competent. They're not the Rockies or the White Sox. And it's hard for me to project the Royals will dominate, but with this pitching staff, it's also hard for me to predict a long losing streak. They've had both this year. Certainly can happen, but 3-3 seems like exactly where they'll be in a week.
Yeah. We stated on the radio show that, look, headed into the 3 with Boston, you go 6-3, full speed ahead, man. This team is ready to go. You go 5-4, good sign. All arrows pointing up. You go 4-5, you're kicking the can down the road, right? These are good teams. You didn't get bludgeoned. You go 3-6, and it's starting to look like you got real issues. So would you stand by that? If they go 1-2, 1-2 in these next 2 series, and they come out of this 9-game 3-6, they better really start enough screwing around, and we'll get to the guys. Guys who need to go down. Trades need to start being constructed if this is your year. I'm not saying you have to execute them,
right?
But you need to start constructing.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's hard to make a trade in May, yeah. Right. And then that's why I'm suggesting maybe you just you got to start giving auditions to some of the guys in the minor leagues. Again, the silver lining to this, this offense is that you can be Drew Waters and be a savior. You know what I mean? Like if Drew Waters has been like a massive upgrade on MJ Melendez, yes. What does John Rave really have to do to be a substantial, even if he just plays defense, how much better would he be than Hunter Renfroe right now? So
let's get to that. We'll do it right after you hear from our friends at David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. With David Starnes Allstate, it's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when your car is in the shop, auto replacement protection to keep you on the road in style, and much more. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, let's get to Michael Massey. Time to get him out. I mean, is it time to reset?
So I would say not yet, in part because he has actually played a little bit better over the last week. And even after his 0 for 2 today, I think he was 10 for 36 in the last 8 games, which is a 278 batting average. A little pop, he only has 1 walk, but like 278 batting average from him is like, I would have to say, is progress. So I don't think the urgency is there. I think you give him another week to see if he continues to hit the ball with some authority. But the reason I wanted this added to the agenda today is, quite frankly, I think it's become clear the Royals are thinking about it now, because today what was really interesting was, with the Royals down 2 in the 7th inning, I think the tying run at the plate, they pinch hit for him with Mark Canha, which they haven't done very often this year, is pinch hitting for him in the late innings, even as much as they struggled. And then they did something they have not done all year, which is moved Jonathan India in to play second base. Jonathan India took some innings at second base for the first time all season long. And, as much as you and I have discussed, the frustration with, like, is his bat being hampered by the fact that he is moving around between left field and third base? Do you really want to add yet another position, to have him juggle and while you're trying to get his bat going? The fact that the Royals were willing to do that says that, they too understand that they cannot continue to sacrifice winning opportunities in an attempt to get Michael Massey's bat going. This team is in contention, even if we're not sure if they're a contender. They have to take winning seriously in the here and now. And so it's something that I think is coming, is going to come to a head soon. And so I think Michael Massey will probably continue to play second base the bulk of the time, at least for another week or so. But like, if he goes into another slump, if he does not continue to hit at least passably for the next 7 to 10 days, late May is, I think, the time when we start to see, moves have been made. I want to say this is around the time of year Hunter Dozier was released. It might now, Massey's case, it may not be Massey who gets the brunt of it. Maybe Hunter Renfroe that they finally, release, and that opens up a roster spot for someone like Nick Lofton, who Nick Lofton is really the guy I'd like to see, rather than moving Jonathan India around again. And the fact is, if you move him into second base, you need another outfielder, and that's not something the Royals are flush with either. So I almost would prefer to see Nick Lofton get that opportunity. He came up for a couple days when Tyler Tolbert was on bereavement leave, and then he went back down and slumped for a couple days, didn't hit. Over the last 4 days, I think he's 6 for 14 with 3 walks. Like, he's back to being the Nick Lofton from the first 6 weeks of the season, with an OBP over 500 over the last 4 games. If nothing else, if Nick Lofton gets on base, he will be more valuable than Michael Massey is right now.
Which he seems to do when they don't bring him to the big leagues, which they didn't play him. And then he doesn't, he had the minor league blues when he got sent down. The question still remains whether or not he can do it. Other candidates, Nick Gordon has been up in the big leagues.
I think they released him actually off the minor
league. Is he
gone?
roster.
Yeah, about a week ago.
Tells you how close to him following the Nick Gordon. I can tell you.
And I should say, Nick Lofton's played mostly third base in the minor league. So did they bring him up and move Maikel Garcia to second? That actually might be the most likely.
But by the way, can I just say, when they signed Nick Gordon, I'm like, the Marlins don't have room for you, but the Royals do. Like, I was like, okay. But I'm like, well, this must be one of those, like, we're just going to keep him around and take a shot. So I hadn't even noticed that he was out. But you mentioned John Rave and Dairon Blanco. Like, I'll mention him as well being back. Is that the plan? Is it that India comes back in, be it third base, and Maikel Garcia goes to second, or he comes back to second base and you bring up one of the outfielders? It doesn't just have to be a middle infielder, because you can send Jonathan India back into the dirt.
Right. That's the alternative. And the thing I like about John Rave is, among other things, he's left-handed. I really do feel like this team, the offense needs a left-handed bat, because you could easily platoon him with Mark Canha, who you can play, platoon and right. He's not a great defensive outfielder by any means at this point in his career, but they played him out there. He's passable if you're using him in a platoon role. And, having another left-handed bat, because the Royals are not flush with lefty bats. Certainly, if you're benching Michael Massey or sending him to minors, it's basically Vinny and Kyle Isbell, and then Drew Waters is a switch hitter. Those are the only guys in the lineup who are not right-handed. You need another left-handed bat. That would be my one concern with with having Nick Lofton in the lineup is then you're probably you're throwing 7 right-handers out there. Now, mind you, the Astros, I think they have like two bench players and no starters on their entire lineup that are not right-handed. Like the Houston Astros right now are incredibly right-handed, and they're still a contender, although they are on the downswing, if you ask me. Like,
and they're also the worst version they've put out there in a long time.
Well, Jordan Alvarez being on the injured list is just crushing because he's like the one left-handed bat in the lineup. I mean, literally, the Royals sent Brandon Siska down to the minor leagues before the Astros series the last time around because they're like, we don't need a lefty specialist. His team doesn't have any lefties we're about to face. We'll bring up Jonathan Bolin for a few days because at least he's right-handed. So you can do it, but if the Royals have any faith at all in John Ray, because I mean, he's now 26 years old. He was a 5th round pick, 1 round after Michael Massey in the 2019 draft, the same draft as Vinny Pasquantino, like guys who were drafted with him, in the same college draft class. I've been in the major leagues now for years, and he's never gotten an opportunity. But I mean, he's hitting he's never been terrible in the minor leagues. He's just never dominated. He's kind of been on average, and he's having probably the best year of his career to this point. It's only 33 games, but he 356 on base, 519 slug in Omaha. I think in a platoon role, he would be better than Hunter Renfroe, better than Benjay Melendez, probably not as good as Drew Waters. Is that worth bringing him up? Is that worth adding him to the 40-man roster? I think so, but I'm not so adamant about it. That, like, if the Royals decide not to, I'm not saying they're making a mistake, but if they decide not to now, then that basically means they do not think John Ray will ever be a major league player at any point, because like if he's not ready now, he never will be.
We talk about guys that can come up. Freddy Fermin has really emerged as one of the more popular Royals, right? Kind of come from not really a prospect to now the guy everybody loves. His game-winning hit the other night certainly adds to the legend. It's just the most popular non-starter, and which I don't even know if we can call him a non-starter because of the way.
Right, he's borderline, but yeah, you don't think of him as an everyday guy. He's not this. When you do a depth chart, he's not number 1 on the list. I find the Freddy Fermin has one of the more fascinating career arcs. It's not just he came up. He was, I think, 27 when he made his debut, but that was just during the Blue Jay series where half the team was forbidden from crossing the Canadian border. We'll leave it at that. But other than that, he was. He didn't play that year except for that series until he was 28 before he really ever got to be in the major leagues. He's 30 now, or I think today's his birthday. Maybe if today or tomorrow. Like if it is, happy birthday, Freddie. But 3 more days. 4 days. 4 days he'll be 30. So even older than Whit Merrifield is my point. Like Whit Merrifield is sort of the poster child for like the late blooming guy who turns into, in his case, of course, an everyday player. And I think the fans, that's part of the reason why he's so beloved, because people know he paid his dues. He paid his dues for a very long time. I mean, Freddy Fermin, obviously being signed out of, Venezuela, you would think was like, really young when, you would think, oh, the guy, he was 16. He did not make his professional debut till he was 21. Which means like he was 16 years old. Nobody wanted to sign him to a professional contract. 17, 18, 19, that is very rare. And there's actually a lot of evidence that major league teams are kind of one of the inefficiencies in the market is Latin American players who are late bloomers, who come in at 16, 17 and don't look like they've got professional prospects. But by the time they're 19, 20 years old, just like a guy, isn't drafted out of high school, but goes to college and is just a stud and becomes a 1st-round pick. Happens all the time in America, but in Latin America, the guy who doesn't show his ability until he's 19 or 20, a lot of times is overlooked. The Astros have done a great job with this. I mean, half the rotation, like Framber Valdez and some of these other guys, were like not signed as professionals till they were 20, 21 years old. So Freddy Fermin was also in that category. But even with him, you talk about not being a prospect. We're not talking about like he was never a top 100 prospect. I'm not sure I ever saw him on a top 30 in the organization prospect, right? Maybe he was at the very bottom of a list at some point, but you never heard his name. I mean, literally never heard his name. He was just organizational depth, just kept improving. He didn't play full-time in the minors. I mean, that's probably the best way to look at it. Like he played maybe 70, 80 games a season in the minor leagues, but just kept kind of moving up the ladder into AA, AAA, and his numbers kept improving a little bit. They gave him a chance. And what we've seen, I mean, we got the game winning it the other day. That was not his first one of the season. He had the game earlier this year. He didn't enter the game till the ninth inning. He put down a key bunt in the ninth to help tie the game. Picks off a runner on third base, the zombie runner on third base in extra innings to keep them in the game, and then has the game-winning hit. Like, showing off everything he does. He's the only player this season to have 2 bunt singles in the same game in the rally against the White Sox, where they were losing in the bottom of the ninth, and the Royals walked that off. You talk about doing the little things, and so many times when you talk about doing the little things, you're talking about a player who just doesn't do the big things. But Freddy Fermin really does do the little things. He is quietly one of the best defensive players, your best defensive catchers in the sport. And when you talk about his throwing ability and his framing ability, he's an exceptional bunter. I mean, look, catchers, I don't care how good a bunter you are. If you have the speed of a catcher, you're probably not lugging out infield, hits on a bunt. But he is such a good bunter that even with a catcher's speed, he's able to, bunt for base hits. And then his bat has been shockingly decent as a major leaguer. I mean, you add it all up, and he's had basically a full season's worth of plate appearances, 640 at bats in the major leagues. He's caught about 1,350 innings. So he's played a full season plus maybe 5 or 10%. And you add it all up, he's been worth 4.9 wins above replacement. That's borderline all-star, certainly an above average player when you factor in his defense and his positional value and his bat. Probably not that good a player, but he's at least an average player, and he's not an everyday guy. And it's been very gratifying this year, I think, to see the fan base kind of finally, it's not that people didn't think he was good. I just don't think he was on the radar as much, but he's become impossible to deny as a really important part of this team that no one ever saw coming. And it's been a lot of fun.
So, is it going to work with Salvy never catching? Or does he have to, for this team, like we talk about, for the offense to get better, does he have to be able to catch?
Look, it's funny after just saying that about Freddy Fermin, but yeah, I still think that Salvador Perez needs to catch. The problem is he has not caught in a game since April 30th, right? He had a hip, strained a hip. He missed 2 games, I think, which for him is shocking. And he's been in the lineup ever since, but he has been strictly a first baseman or DH for the last, 11 games or so now. Luke Maile obviously was called up and still on the roster, started today. And look, Luke Maile, it's been, I think, 3 starts and 10 plate appearances, but he's 3 for 8 with a homer and 2 walks. Luke Maile has been shockingly good, because anybody can be shockingly good in 10 plate appearances, but he has a track record of a 10-year major league career. He's 34 years old. He's not Drew Butera bad at the plate, but he's not that much better. So we've been fortunate. We've gotten some decent plate appearances from Luke Maile. The Royals need to get Salvador Perez back behind the plate, even if it just means enough to be kind of the backup to Fermin as opposed to the other way around, but to the point where they don't have to carry Luke Maile. You do not want to have to carry 3 catchers on your roster. That's another area where, again, they don't have Tyler Tolbert or Dairon Blanco out there to pinch run. They could use Nick Lofton off the bench, et cetera, et cetera. There are ways they could use that roster spot. And it tells you the importance of defensive value and positional value. When we talk about Salvador Perez, his numbers this year, they're not great, but they're better than Freddy Fermin's at the plate. He's had a better offense. They both are hitting in the 240s. They both have an OBP in the 280s, but Freddy Fermin had a 299 slug. Salvador Perez, even after a 1 for 40 days, at 367. So he's basically Freddy Fermin with more power, but Freddy Fermin has been above replacement value. Salvador Perez is below replacement value because he's doing so much of that at first base and DH. That bat is not playing right now at those positions. He needs to catch. At least 40 to 50% of the time. I assume he will get back to that soon. We will find out when Luke Maile gets sent back down. But Salvador Perez is not helping this team if he's strictly a first baseman / DH.
No, I agree. And he does. For them, especially if you're going to fix it without some kind of major trade, then he's got to be catching. You've got to get offense from that spot. I think that's got to be one of the things that happens. So, he's got to be able to get back behind the dish, which we would presume is not long. right?
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened already. I assume the Royals will get asked about this fairly soon, but I have to assume in the next week or so. I mean, this is Salvador Perez we're talking about here, like not indestructible, but sometimes he fools you into thinking he is. So I assume he will be back there pretty soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We want to talk about winning in the margins. We'll do that after you hear from our friends at Northland Injury Law. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff, as well as your motorcycle, boat, ATV, and you name it. Get with Dave and he'll get you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations: North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. All right, let's talk about what the Royals can do, let's say, in the margins in lieu of the offense getting better. What are the little things, the numbers, the hidden gems that will keep them afloat?
So, I mean, we obviously already talked about like Rave and Lofton and just, improving the offense on the margins. And that's what it is. But at this point, the offense, a marginal improvement could end up being a lot of difference. The pitching staff doesn't need a huge margin for error, but they need some margin. And they don't have that right now. So that's the obvious one. On the other side, though, is just, they're still carrying Chris Stratton. And then more and more, it looks like Angel Zerpa just needs a reset of some sort, because he has not been good all season. Early on, there were signs of talent and success. I worry that it's a mental thing at this point. I think he's just trying to be too perfect, and it's backfiring. Still like him a lot, and I certainly don't want to leave the organization. But I think if you just replace those two roster spots in the bullpen, because I mean the rest of the bullpen is it's really good. I mean, we saw so much of that, I feel like, in that 12-inning game against Boston, that they did win despite not scoring a single run that wasn't a zombie runner, because it wasn't just Lucas Erceg in the 8th and Carlos Estevez in the 9th. They were able to turn to Daniel Lynch. They were able to turn to my guy Steven Cruz. They've got multiple guys in that bullpen, but especially when your offense is this anemic and every game is going to be 1-1 in the 8th inning, and you're facing the specter of potentially more extra inning games, having 5, 6, even 7 good relievers in the bullpen might matter to you more than a team that's playing a lot of 10-3 games, and then you have opportunities to throw Chris Stratton out there, right? Like the Royals, that White Sox game where they were up 10-0 was like, ooh, we could throw Chris Stratton for not 1 but maybe even 2 innings. Like this is an unexpected delight. Of course, also today with when you're down 10-1, I guess you have similar opportunities. So looking at Omaha right now, there are a couple of options. So we briefly saw him earlier this year, Jonathan Bolin.
Yeah, like when is it his time? He's 28 years old. It's not like that draft was a long time ago that he was in, and he was drafted as a college player. Like
he was drafted after Brady Singer and Daniel Lynch and Chris Bubich. Like, I mean, he's been through a lot, Tommy John, and, he really just recently moved to the bullpen, right? Which we talked about for a long time. When are you going to give this guy an opportunity to see what you can do in the bullpen?
Well, and it's what we've talked about many times. When they find somebody else who can start, but their inability to find other starting pitching prospects means that guys who should have been shifted to the bullpen years ago continue to be run out there with the hope that they will turn into big league starters because they're not developing their own. Now they've got them. So they've got the starters. So that's the exciting part here, right? Like that they were sure enough, they moved him in like July of last season, finally to the bullpen. He was
His overall numbers last year weren't good because you had the first 3-4 months in the rotation, but his numbers just as a reliever in Omaha were good. And this year they're very good. I think 16 innings, 12 hits, 5 walks, 23 strikeouts. His last game was Friday night? Yeah. And he struck out the side. He faced 3 batters and struck all 3 of them out. Like, I think he's ready. I'm not saying he's going to be, a closer or he's even going to be as good as Steven Cruz, but like, I think he could be another weapon in that bullpen. He's the most obvious guy. Obviously you have Evan Sisk, who I think I called him Brandon earlier. Evan Sisk, who is the lefty specialist, and certainly if you want another lefty on the roster, not right now with the Astros coming to town, or we're going to Houston, but Evan Sisk, I think, as a lefty, what's really impressive with him is the guy's had some command issues in the past, in the minors at least. This year he's faced 39 batters and walked none of them. He did walk a couple in Kansas City, but no walks, 12 strikeouts in AAA. So he might be turning a bit of a corner in terms of his command. The really interesting option to me, though, is Luinder Avila, who we've talked about as a guy who really started to emerge last year in AA and then was sensational in the Arizona Fall League, throwing out of the bullpen. He's back in the rotation in Omaha this year and has pitched well, not dominant, but well. He's
pitched okay.
His last outing was exceptional, though. 7 innings, 2 hits, no walks, 8 strikeouts. That's the one that caught my eye. And it's like, I don't, my point is, though, it's like he's doing it out of the rotation. Is it time to, if you care about trying to win this year, is it time to put his development as a starter on hold and say, you know what? He has the secondary stuff. This guy could be really good in the bullpen right now. And we're trying to win right now. So maybe he jumps the line over a guy like Bolin. Personally, I would just go with Bolin right now because he's ready and he's never going to be more ready. And I think he's good enough to be an improvement. But I'm just saying the Royals do have some options in AAA. It's not trading season yet, maybe, but like they can improve this team without making a big move. They just got to start leading off the bottom 3 or 4 roster spots like they have to do every year. And I think this team can be 5% better overnight.
Do you agree that they can handle one guy? Right? Like that's kind of the throw in the towel guy, but they can't have 2 guys.
Right. And that's the thing. Angel Zerpa not coming around here and, if anything, getting worse over the last week or 2, I think makes this a little more pressing of an issue. Like, you want to keep Chris Stratton around. I see no reason to keep Chris Stratton around because he's going to be free agent at the end of the year. The money is sunk and there's just no reason to think he's going to improve. But like, there's no explanation for having both Stratton and Zerpa on the roster right now because you can't function with 2 dead roster spots.
Right. No, I agree. And we know what they're doing. They want to keep a hold of as many arms as possible. So if somebody goes down, they've got, depth. That's what it is. Right. I mean, that's why we're not already seeing these moves.
Yeah. I mean, the depth they have is
at least the Stratton move.
Right. Well, at some point, I think I do think the depth is there. I mean, we talked about how, the call-ups this year, we're now up to it's like 25 or 26 scoreless innings. Taylor Clark threw another scoreless inning today. Steven Cruz pitched today. We talk about, so those guys, right? So Evan Sisk, Taylor Clark, Jonathan Bolin, Noah Cameron, and Steven Cruz are the 5 guys they called up from the minor leagues this year. None of them have given up a run yet. It's crazy at this point. Like I'm watching this out of amusement, if nothing else, because it's just like, how long can they keep this going? 17, 27 and 2/3, I believe it is, scoreless innings from 5 guys who did not make did not break camp with the team. That's depth. That's impressive depth right there. And the crazy thing is, I think they have a little bit more depth in the minor leagues. Mind you, 2 of those guys are Sisk and Bolin, and they're both in Omaha right now. So one of those guys probably you should call up because who's not throwing you shutout innings? It's Chris Stratton, right? Who's up to 14 runs and 15 innings this year. And Angel Zerpa's at 12 runs and 15 innings. So yeah, that seems like an easy improvement.
Yeah, it does. All right, let's talk about Jac Caglianone. Let's end on a good note, right? The week that was Jac Caglianone, 348, 3 home runs, 4 runs scored, 10 runs batted in, a walk, and 5 strikeouts for Jac Caglianone. Are we doing this again from AA next week? Or is it inevitable? We catch on the Tuesday game, this Tuesday through Sunday, we have that 2 home run game. So that's doing a lot of the lifting here on those numbers that you that you hear, but he continues overall week over week over week to be hitting very, very well.
He hit was it Thursday? He hit a home run off a lefty that was, the launch angle was not optimal, but he just had so much power. It looked like just a pop up, a deep pop up, but it just carried and carried and carried, and that's the kind of power we're talking about here. I'm a little the walk rate has come down a little bit. He only walked once this week, and I'm always nervous just because that's what the Royals do. But I mean, it's not terrible. And the important thing is his strikeout rate is maintaining. It's 23%. Every week I bring up the strikeout rate because that's the thing I'm really watching. You'd like to see it get even better, but the point is he's hitting for power. He's hit 9 home runs this year now. His slug is close to 6. I think it's like 590 or something like that. And if you can slug, I guess 578 as of this moment, but you can slug that much with a strikeout rate under 25%. That you've got a very ideal combination of power and contact, right? At this point, I'm not entirely sure why they haven't moved him up to Omaha, right? We know the Royals like to, the philosophy is when you've made a decision, wait one more week before actually implementing the decision. That's something the Royals have always preached patience. So I get it. So maybe the fact that it's been, at least a week now that you and I have been like, why hasn't he been called up to Omaha, means that this week he will. But I'd like to see it. I don't think, if they put him in right field every single day, if he was playing right field suddenly every single game, I'd be like, okay, fine. You want to leave him in Double-A while he learns this new position. But if you're only going to play him there like 40% of the time anyway, then I don't think he's learning enough against Double-A competition right now to justify keeping him there. Just move him up to Omaha. At this point, even if he's DHing, he might help the Royals by July. There are enough needs on this team that even if you're not convinced he'll ever play right field, he could still be of use in Kansas City soon. So get him to Omaha now so that we can find out if he's ready for Kansas City by July.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's coming until after some of those mile markers we've talked about. So, and that is, getting the draft pick. And I think that can change, but I think he needs to just get white hot. And I think he needs to get white hot, get to AAA, and get hot there too. Would you be in favor of skipping AAA?
If I thought, if it was such an urgent need and I thought he was so ready, I mean, teams do it all the time. I think it would be fine, but I'm like,
you do it all the time. When was the last time it was successful for a Royals prospect?
For a Royals player? Never, right? I don't know. I mean, Alex Gordon did it, Johnny Damon did it, but they both struggled for a long time afterwards.
Did Damon do it? Gordon didn't.
Gordon, well, full season, and it wasn't a full season in Double-A, and then just started the next year in the major league. But it was after an off season, obviously. I don't think he ever played in Omaha till he got sent down later, right? But that's the point, is that maybe he wasn't as ready as we thought.
The last one that it worked for is Carlos Beltran.
Yeah, Beltran is probably the last one, exactly. At least on the hitting side. Greinke, well, no, even Greinke I think went to Omaha for a month maybe.
They still pushed him too fast.
Yeah, well, they weren't ultimately it all worked out, I guess, in the end. The point though is we're not arguing, you and I, bring him up straight from Double-A to the major leagues. No, just he's ready for the next step. We're not saying bring him to the majors, but
no, I know we're not, but there are a lot of other people that are saying that, and I want to be clear,
which is exciting that there are some of these people I respect who are he's ready or almost ready. I'm like, great, let him go to Omaha then, so that when he's ready, you don't feel like you still have to take that next step. That's my point, is have him ready to go in Omaha. So the minute you feel like whatever milestone you want to pass in terms of service time is breached, or when you just realize you can't wait any longer, you've already given him the greatest possible challenge short of the major leagues.
Yeah, he's a little short to me of talking about jumping him. I would not be in favor of that. I think even a couple of weeks in AAA.
Exactly. So might as well do that now. I mean, I'm not banging the table he needs to be in Kansas City by Memorial Day.
What would be the reason to not promote him to AAA right now?
I think knowing the way the Royals operate, I would suspect it would have something to do with his swing decisions. And if they feel like he is swinging at too many pitches outside the zone or taking too many pitches inside the zone, and we don't have pitch by pitch breakdowns at the minor league level easily available. Some of the data is out there, but most of it's kept proprietary. So the Royals certainly have more information about that than we do. But just based on like the walk and strikeout data being better than I honestly, that might be the thing I'm happiest about with his profiles. Just his strikeout to walk data has been very good. It's hard for me to imagine he's having this much success when he swings and this much success when he doesn't swing, to think that his swing decisions are messed up. So I think that they're just operating out an abundance of caution. They're probably trying to decide, is it worth trying to give him more reps in the outfield because maybe he can help us out there, and trying to just debate the risk of doing that versus also moving him up at the same time. So I suspect that's part of it. But I think by Memorial Day, I suspect he will be in Omaha.
Yeah, that would be my assumption. You think by Memorial Day?
Yeah.
What does Memorial Day fall on?
2 weeks from tomorrow.
Yeah, that sounds plausible.
Yeah, when you and I talk, maybe not next week, but the week after, I think we will be talking about Jac Caglianone in Omaha.
Okay. I hope we are.
Yeah. And if we're not, then we'll be talking about why he's not in Omaha again, I'm sure.
When it comes to insurance, you should be talking to David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331 or visit them online or stop into one of their offices. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. When it comes to your parking lot, focus on your business, not problems in your lot, whether it's striping, whether it's a lot that needs complete replacement. One contractor, all things parking lot. That's GAN Asphalt and Concrete. Find them online at ganasphalt.com. And if you've been hurt in an accident, call Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyer serving Kansas City for more than 40 years. Call 816-400-HURT or text HURT to 22222. That's HURT. Text HURT to 22222 for Northland Injury Law. For the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.